Today, we're diving into The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, a book that's less about what to do with money and more about how to think about money. This book tends to explore how our behaviors, emotions, and psychology impact our financial lives in surprising ways. For example, most people assume financial success depends only on education and intelligence. However, in The Psychology of Money, finance expert Morgan Housel uncovers an alternate hypothesis. He says the key to financial success lies in understanding human behavior. So also, understanding human behavior requires an intimate understanding of both finance and history. However, since human behavior is only predictable to a certain degree, there can be several different explanations of the same phenomenon that all make sense in both fields. Housel strongly posits that understanding how emotions and beliefs influence financial decisions can lead to better financial decisions. The premise of this book shows that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave, because even a smart person can make bad decisions with money. And behavior is hard to teach, even to really smart people. For instance, a genius who loses control of their emotions can be a financial disaster. The opposite is also true. At the same time, ordinary folks with no financial education can be wealthy if they have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measures of intelligence. Now let's get into some of the key lessons from this book that can reshape your approach to personal finance and help you find peace with money. Lesson number 1. Wealth is what you don't see. People tend to judge wealth by what they see because that's the information they have in front of them. They can't see people's bank accounts or brokerage statements, so they rely on outward appearances to gauge financial success. Many associate wealth with expensive houses, luxury cars, or designer clothes. But Housel teaches that true wealth is what's hidden: your savings, investments, and the financial freedom to live without stress. Instead of focusing on looking rich, focus on being rich, which often means living below your means and accumulating assets that grow over time. He says spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. In 2009, singer Rihanna nearly went bankrupt after overspending and sued her financial advisor Burden LLP. Rihanna started 2009 with $11 million in cash and ended the year with $2 million. She blamed Burden LLP for not letting her know she was losing money. The advisor responded, "Was it really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money?" When most people say they want to be a millionaire, what they might actually mean is, "I'd like to spend $1 million. And that is literally the opposite of being a millionaire. There are, of course, wealthy people who also spend a lot of money on stuff. But even in those cases, what we see is their richness, not their wealth. We see the cars they choose to buy and perhaps the school they choose to send their kids to. But we don't see the savings, retirement accounts, or investment portfolios. We see the homes they bought, not the homes they could have bought had they stretched themselves thin. Lesson number 2. The role of luck and risk. The author teaches that success and failure are often influenced by luck and risk, as well as factors we can't fully control. Housel illustrates this with stories of people who succeeded because of luck and others who failed due to bad luck, despite their efforts. This lesson reminds us to stay humble about our own success and to avoid judging others who may not have had the same advantages. It also helps us understand that financial outcomes are rarely as simple as effort equals reward. Luck and risk both happen because the world is too complex to allow 100% of your actions to dictate 100% of your outcomes. They are driven by the same thing. You are one person in a game with 7 billion other people and infinite moving parts. The accidental impact of actions outside of your control can be more consequential than the ones you consciously take. But both are so hard to measure, and hard to accept, that they too often go overlooked. He says, "For every Bill Gates, there is a Kent Evans, Bill Gates' best friend who was just as skilled and driven but ended up on the other side of life roulette." He also said, "If you give luck and risk their proper respect, you realize that when judging people's financial success, both your own and others, it's never as good or as bad as it seems." Lesson number 3. The power of compounding. Compounding is one of the most powerful forces in finance. It works slowly at first but grows exponentially over time. Housel emphasizes that even modest investments can grow significantly if left to compound for years. Warren Buffett, for instance, made most of his wealth later in life due to decades of compounding. This lesson encourages us to start investing early, even with small amounts, and to be patient. More than 2,000 books are dedicated to how Warren Buffett built his fortune. Many of them are wonderful, but few pay enough attention to the simplest fact pointed out by Housel. He said Buffett's fortune isn't due to just being a good investor, but being a good investor since the age of 10. By the time he was 30, he had a net worth of $1 million. His skill is investing, but his secret is time. That's how compounding works. He further stated that good investing isn't necessarily about earning the highest returns, because the highest returns tend to be one-off hits that can't be repeated. It's about earning pretty good returns that you can stick with and which can be repeated for the longest period of time. That's when compounding runs wild. Lesson number 4. Financial freedom is the ultimate goal. Money's greatest intrinsic value is its ability to give you control over your time. Bit by bit, you need to obtain a level of independence and autonomy that comes from unspent assets that give you greater control over what you can do and when you can do it. Housel emphasizes that the goal of building wealth isn't just a high net worth. The goal of building wealth is financial freedom. This means having the flexibility to make choices about how you spend your time and energy. Financial freedom looks different for everyone, but it often includes having enough savings or investments to make work optional, enabling you to live on your own terms. And that's because people like to feel like they're in control, like being in the driver's seat. When we try to get them to do something, they feel disempowered and develop reactance psychologically. Rather than feeling like they made the choice, they feel like we made it for them. So they say no or do something else, even when they might have originally been happy to go along. When you accept how true that statement is, you realize that aligning money towards a life that lets you do what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want, for as long as you want, has incredible returns. Lesson number 5. Save for flexibility, not just specific goals. Do people need to be convinced to save money? To answer that question, Housel suggests that life's unpredictability means we should save not just for planned expenses but for flexibility when unexpected costs arise. This could be a job loss, an emergency, or an opportunity that you wouldn't want to miss. An emergency fund gives you the freedom to face life's surprises without unnecessary stress. He further said while saving for specific goals is important, having a financial buffer for the unexpected is equally essential. Housel points out that one of the biggest obstacles to building wealth is lifestyle inflation, spending more as you earn more. Housel explains that increasing your lifestyle costs as your income grows often leaves people in the same financial position, regardless of how much they make. Avoiding lifestyle inflation helps you save more and build wealth faster, giving you financial flexibility in the future. Housel in his book categorized income earners into 3 groups: those who save, those who don't think they can save, and those who don't think they need to save. He also said people's ability to save is more in their control than they might think, and they don't need a specific reason to save. Some people save money for a down payment on a house, a new car, or for retirement. That's great, of course. However, saving does not require a goal of purchasing something specific. You can save just for saving's sake. And indeed you should. Everyone should. Lesson number 6. The influence of your financial past. In The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel explores how personal financial experiences deeply shape our attitudes toward money. Housel argues that people's financial behavior is often rooted in their individual past rather than in rational planning or universal economic principles. Each person's experience with money is unique, shaped by when and where they grew up, as well as by significant financial events they witnessed or experienced directly. The person who grew up in poverty thinks about risk and reward in ways the child of a wealthy banker cannot fathom if he tried. The person who grew up when inflation was high experienced something the person who grew up with stable prices never. The stockbroker who lost everything during the Great Depression experienced something the tech worker basking in the glory of the late 1990s can't imagine. The Australian who hasn't seen a recession in 30 years has experienced something no American ever has. On and on. The list of experiences is endless. In essence, the book encourages readers to be mindful of how their personal history impacts their financial mindset. Also highlights that understanding this can lead to more self-aware and balanced financial decisions, rather than blindly following what others might think is best or right. Lesson number 7. The Seduction of Pessimism. Morgan Housel delves into the nuanced difference between getting wealthy and staying wealthy, highlighting how distinct mindsets and behaviors drive each phase. Getting wealthy often involves taking calculated risks, being bold, and seizing opportunities. Housel suggests that accumulating wealth requires optimism about potential outcomes, the ability to embrace uncertainty, and a willingness to invest time, energy, or resources into ventures that could pay off. People who build wealth are typically willing to endure volatility, make unconventional decisions, and capitalize on opportunities that might feel uncomfortable. Staying wealthy, however, demands a different approach, one that emphasizes caution, patience, and risk management. Here, Housel emphasizes the importance of humility, a strong sense of self-awareness, and the acknowledgement that the future is inherently unpredictable. As for preserving wealth, he said, it depends on being more conservative, staying vigilant against overconfidence, and knowing when to protect what you've already achieved rather than always reaching for more. Traits like prudence and restraint become essential, as the risk of loss is just as powerful as the potential for gain. Housel sums up this distinction by noting that getting wealthy often comes from having a strategy for growth, while staying wealthy is about having a strategy for survival. Each phase requires different mindsets, habits, and strategies. Lesson 8. The cost of wealth is not visible. Housel reminds us that achieving wealth often comes with sacrifices that aren't immediately visible. People who appear wealthy may have worked extremely long hours, taken on high stress, or made sacrifices along the way. Understanding this helps us avoid envying others and instead focus on what we're willing to trade to reach our own financial goals. Unlike most transactions where costs are clear, like buying a car or a meal, the price of wealth is often invisible and complex. Housel explains that wealth requires sacrifice and discipline, yet those efforts are often unseen. He contrasts this with visible markers of wealth, like expensive cars or designer clothes, which are often ways of showing success but not necessarily wealth itself. Real wealth, in Housel's view, includes things that don't make it onto social media feeds or conversations: financial security, freedom from debt, and the ability to make choices without being forced by financial pressure. The cost of wealth is in those everyday choices that add up over time, quietly building financial security without needing public validation. In essence, true wealth is what you don't see: the choices, sacrifices, and time invested in building a stable financial foundation. In summary, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel reminds us that wealth isn't just about numbers, it's about behaviors, emotions, and choices that align with our values. Let me know in the comments which of these lessons resonates most with you. Also, if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to get a copy of this book and give this video a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more personal finance insights. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.